I've been celebrating Black History Month by playing a clip of somebody to hear them in their own words, who really is an icon in our community. And I want to take a minute to celebrate Senator Edward Brooke. He was the senator of Massachusetts. He was elected in 1967, and I believe, until I think he served until 1979. He was a Black Republican, and he was of a different ilk. I think he'd be mortified at what we see today. He was really a liberal. And it's funny, Amisha, a lot of the current Black Republicans, they never mention him, probably because he was pro-choice, because he was pro-civil rights, because he basically crafted the Fair Housing Act. So they never really mention him at all. They'll mention Booker T. Washington, who wasn't in political office, whatever. But they never really mentioned Senator Edward Brooke. This is a man who was the third Black man in the Senate, the first one to be elected, because the first two were appointed. It was different back then in the 1800s. But I don't know why I don't hear the folks mention his name. I don't know. But here is Senator Edward Brooke, shortly before he died, talking about his vision and how he moved through life to accomplish his goals. Listen to this.
My grandmother, who used to say, "Remember your place now." And that disturbed me. And I knew what she was saying and why she was saying it. She was saying it to protect me also. And that's why I've said, particularly young Black children, your place is anywhere you want it to be. It's left up to you. You make that decision. To young politicians, I want to make a plea for elective office. Seek power. There's nothing wrong with power if it's used wisely and used rightly. Power is essential. Power is what gets things going, and it can be used for good as well as for evil. Some people think of power as the powerful person being evil. I think a powerful person being good.
Really powerful words, right, Amisha? I mean, again, I don't know why he's not mentioned more often, but he certainly is an icon in Black history and Black politics, and a Black Republican. Your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. I think that you spoke very wisely of this earlier. He's not mentioned because it doesn't jive with the current iteration of the Republican Party. This is someone who, in today's standards, would be seen as quite liberal. I appreciate
a radical.
Yeah, exactly. I appreciate the comments that you replayed of his, because I think that sometimes power has a dirty word, or it is a dirty word in many people's minds, largely because power can lead to corruption. And we've seen it in many places. But I also believe that depending on the structure that you have within yourself and your, the community that you actually are working towards resolving issues with, or trying to elevate, or helping in many senses, power can also lead to a vast amount of good things. When it comes to civil rights legislation, when it comes to ensuring equity, those are very hard things to push from the outside in. The leadership has to take a role in actually advocating for and making sure these things come to fruition as well. Yes, there can be a groundswell. Yes, the protests are important. Making sure the advocates on the ground know what's going on and that they're pushing on those leaders and have that leveraging power. Absolutely. But the people who are really pulling the strings there are those who are oftentimes our elected officials. And we have to make sure that within that power position, there are individuals who have the best interests of their voters, of the community in mind. And I think that he was someone who fully understood that.
Absolutely. And I want to just read you a quote from Senator Brooke. He said this back in 1964 when he saw Operation Dixie, when he saw the Southern Strategy, when he saw the Republican Party endorsing this horrific figure named Barry Goldwater, who did not support the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Edward Brooke, before he was a senator, because before that he was the first Black Attorney General of Massachusetts, he said this, quote, "You can't say the Negro left the Republican Party. The Negro feels he was evicted from the Republican Party," unquote. So there's that context too. There's this whole idea that Black folks just went ahead and left because they just wanted to go to the Democrats. No, they were literally pushed out. They were not welcomed. They were not welcomed in the party. The 1964 Republican National Convention, there were Confederate flags at the RNC. It was clear. Black journalists were being called the N-word. They didn't want y'all. So when I hear people say, oh, with the back to the party, we got to bring Black voters back. Well, make sure y'all acknowledge how they were pushed out. Make sure y'all know that history, how they were literally, and you had folks like Jackie Robinson begging Richard Nixon, you're doing the wrong thing. Then even Jackie Robinson says, F y'all. By 1968, he says Richard Nixon will be deaf to Blacks. And what does Richard Nixon do? The infamous war on drugs that would decimate Black communities. So yeah, it's just shout out to Senator. Now, he wasn't perfect now. No one is. But shout out to Senator Brooke for laying it out. And every Black Republican should really know his history, should know his history.
I would argue that Democrats as well. I don't think that he gets his just due in its historical connotation, but also that he's not somebody who's very much talked about in general among either party. For Republicans, get it, got it good. They don't really care about Black people, haven't cared about Black people for a very long time, and they're very, very anti-civil rights. For Democrats, he's also not somebody who's upheld as someone who, had, again, such a strong bravery and such a strong progressive bent at a time where progressivism wasn't a thing.